My dad tells me he can't walk me down the aisle because he has to scatter my sister's cat's ashes in Hawaii, but he doesn't like who I chose in his place. So I, 26 female, am getting married this week. There are only 5 days left until the wedding, and I'm already caught up in so much drama, all thanks to my sister and my dad so great. To give some context, my dad has been a single father for the last 10 years, ever since my mom passed away after a long and exhausting battle with cancer when I was 16. It was incredibly hard for us, but even more so for me because, at that time, I realized that no one was on my side and that my sister would always get away with whatever she wanted. My mom had treated us both equally, but my dad definitely had a soft spot for my sister. After my mom passed away, she got away with everything, but it wasn't as easy for me. My sister, Kate, is 2 years older than me and 10 times more annoying and spoiled than anyone I know. She literally treated me like her personal servant when I was younger, and whenever I protested, my dad would ask me to do what she wanted because apparently she was too fragile to do things herself. That was just an act. I knew it. But my dad believed her. It always helped that she had been a sickly child when she was younger, but as she grew up, she outgrew that. Still, she liked to pretend she was constantly recovering from colds or other common illnesses just to avoid doing her chores. So I ended up doing all the housework while she lazed around in her room doing nothing. I used to find it incredibly annoying, but if I didn't do it, no one else would. Because my dad always came home too tired from work. Anyway, I didn't want to bother him. After I turned 18 and moved out for college, things started to get better for me because I no longer had to live with her. We had no contact after college since I didn't like her, and we never got along. Not only did she make me do all the work, but she also wasn't pleasant to be around. She constantly made passive-aggressive comments, tried to irritate me, and was just generally annoying. So I was quite happy to have left home. I missed my dad, of course, but I wasn't going to sacrifice my sanity to live with my family. I know many people will find it strange that I actually got along with my dad despite how blatantly biased he was toward my sister, but I can't help it. We had a good relationship, and it used to be that way until recently. It's not like I was a pushover for him. I always protested and stood up for myself when he was being too difficult, and we had our fair share of fights over the years because of how biased he was toward Kate. But at the end of the day, he was still my father and I eventually reconciled with him. I met my fiancé, Andy, in college, and after dating for almost 8 years, we finally decided to get married this year. We're both in good places in our respective careers, and it just felt like the right time. I can't say the same for my sister, though. Kate has been doing pretty badly lately and has moved back in with my dad. After graduating, she had been living on her own for a couple of years, but last year, she decided to quit her job to join her friend in a jewelry business. Unfortunately, it didn't go well. They hadn't done any research or prepared properly, and they just jumped in without much thought. So, naturally, it was doomed from the start. Not only did they burn through all the investment money, which they had mostly raised from family and friends, but they also couldn't generate any substantial profit from the business. She had already quit her job, and after their business failed, she had to shut it down. Since then, she's been unemployed. It's been almost 6 months, and she hasn't even bothered to start looking for another job. So she's completely dependent on my dad. He had planned to retire in a couple of years, but now I don't think that's feasible since he's supporting her. This is just one of the things we've been arguing about recently because I think he needs to tell her to get up and find a job. She can't just rely on her aging father for the rest of her life and sulk over a failed business. She needs to go out and do something with her life. But my dad says, she just needs time to process things emotionally before committing to anything else. We have very opposing views on this, so we try not to talk about it since it would just lead to a fight. Also, I got engaged just a couple of weeks after she had to close her business. And my dad thinks that's another reason why she's so upset. Even her younger sister is doing so well in life, and she can't even get out of bed most days. I know for sure she's jealous of me right now because she makes sure to post about it on social media, pretending that everything terrible in the world is happening to her alone for attention. Whenever someone responds to her posts, which definitely seem like cries for help, she mentions how well I'm doing and how she deserves all of this, not me. She claims, I got where I am because I'm willing to manipulate and step on people to get ahead. Obviously, I don't do that. I'm where I am because of my hard work and efforts. She's where she is because she likes to play the victim even though she's responsible for everything bad that's happened to her. Well, except for one thing. Maybe 3 weeks ago, her cat died after almost 15 years. She had that cat for a long time and was extremely attached to it. When it happened, she was naturally devastated with grief. And my dad told me things were so bad that I started to feel sorry for her. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to reach out to her and offer my condolences, but I didn't want to seem fake. So I just told my dad to pass along my message. Anyway, she was already pretty depressed. And then when her cat died, she refused to even eat for days and my dad literally had to beg her to get out of bed and try to function. It was really pathetic. And I truly felt bad for both of them. But I was very busy with wedding preparations since there were only a couple of weeks left until the big day. So I decided not to get too involved in what was going on there. I kept in touch with my dad and comforted him whenever he was too upset about Kate's behavior, but that was really the most I could do. Anyway, I didn't think this would cause me problems. But a few days ago, my dad contacted me to say that he wouldn't be able to walk me down the aisle on my wedding day. Obviously, I had assumed he would do it, but I called him to formally ask him the day before that phone call. I thought he would agree immediately, but he said he needed time to think about it, which was suspicious. Then he called me the next day to decline. When I asked why, since I was obviously puzzled, his reason completely shocked me. He told me that Kate had cremated her cat a few weeks earlier and now wanted to go to Hawaii and scatter its ashes on the beach. A few years ago, she and a group of friends had taken a road trip in Hawaii, and she had brought her cat with her. Apparently, she had a lot of good memories of that place, and it was special to her. The day of my wedding would be exactly 1 month after her cat had died, so she wanted to scatter the ashes that day. So not only did my dad refuse to walk me down the aisle, but he also told me he wouldn't be able to attend my wedding. He said he was really sorry and wanted to make it up to me later, but he had to go with Kate since this was the first time in weeks she had talked about wanting to do something and get out of the house. She also specifically requested that my dad accompany her because she wanted someone to support her emotionally. I was extremely angry when he told me that, but I tried to handle the situation calmly. I told my dad that maybe one of her friends could go with her, or that she could do it at least a day after my wedding so that he could attend. I wanted at least one of my parents to be present at my wedding, but my dad said she was pretty firm in what she had said. He had made the same suggestions himself because he also wanted to attend my wedding, but when he tried to suggest an alternative, she got really upset and started accusing him of not caring about her feelings. Apparently, according to her, on my wedding day, I would have many people around me who cared about me, but she only had my dad. She thinks he should be prioritizing her right now since she's going through a very difficult time in her life. When my dad said he also believed that, given her situation, she should be the priority right now, I completely lost it. I told him that she had been his priority her entire life, so I wasn't surprised that he was ditching me on my wedding day just to be with her. I didn't give him a chance to say anything else. I just hung up and blocked him everywhere. I was so upset. And when I told Andy, he seemed to understand where my anger was coming from. I cried a lot for the next 2 days. But then I decided to get back at my dad and do something I knew would upset him. Since I knew my sister was playing with me and trying to get under my skin, I decided to do something I knew would bother both of them. Instead of crying about it, I decided to ask my uncle to walk me down the aisle. My uncle is my dad's twin brother, and they absolutely hate each other. I've known this since I was a kid and have seen firsthand how nasty they can be when they're together. Whenever they were at family events, they were constantly trying to one-up each other, making it uncomfortable for everyone else around them. My grandparents tried really hard to make them stop, but they hated each other so much that it was hard to control them. Eventually, they outgrew it. And after my mom passed away, my dad stopped attending any event where he knew my uncle would be present. Personally, I had nothing against my uncle, and honestly, I could sympathize with him because I knew what it felt like to have a sibling you hated. But we also didn't have a particularly close relationship. Anyway, after that conversation with my dad, I was so angry that I decided to take it a step further and reach out to my uncle to ask him to walk me down the aisle. He was pretty surprised when I did and said he didn't know what to say because he didn't think we were close enough for that. But I told him this was to piss off my dad for what he had done. After that, he didn't need any more convincing. He jumped on board as soon as he heard that this would upset my dad. My uncle actually started laughing when I asked if he wanted to be part of this. Even though they're both over 50, he told me he would never pass up an opportunity to embarrass his brother. Amen to that. Anyway, we agreed that we were going to make a post about it, and that would definitely get back to my dad. So that same night, I posted that I was so grateful to my uncle for agreeing to walk me down the aisle. Within hours, I got a call from my dad. I had unblocked him just for this, and as soon as he got through to me, he told me he was really upset that I would even consider talking to my uncle and replacing him with that guy, of all people. He told me he would convince Kate to delay scattering the ashes, but now all I had to do was accept that he would walk me down the aisle because it would be very embarrassing and insulting for my uncle to do it when he was still alive and well. I told him he had his chance, and he blew it for Kate. And now I was giving him a taste of his own medicine. He got really upset and said I was being petty and immature. I agreed. I was being petty and immature, but that just seemed to upset him even more. By the end of the call, he was crying and said he never expected me to act this way just because he was trying to be there for my depressed sister, who had it so much worse than I did right now. He said I had absolutely no empathy and was being pure evil because my sister had literally lost everything, and I couldn't even let her have our dad for one day. Now I feel like what I did was a bit insensitive because he was right that my sister had lost everything. So I need to know, do I need to apologize to my dad or not? So, am I the bad one for asking my uncle to walk me down the aisle after my dad refused because my sister wanted him to go to Hawaii with her on my wedding day? Update 1. The wedding is 2 days away, and I've decided that I'm going to walk down the aisle alone instead of going through all this mess. I think it's more fitting for me to walk alone as in the long run, I've realized I'll be alone. I talked to my uncle and since we already got the reaction we wanted from my dad, he agreed. Now he'll just be a guest as he was originally supposed to be. He didn't mind anyway, as he had been skeptical about walking me down the aisle in the first place. I also spoke to my dad, but I didn't do it over the phone because that would just lead to another confrontational conversation. So I just left him a message saying that if he wanted to attend the wedding, he was free to do so, but he didn't need to walk me down the aisle. I also told him that if he didn't want to attend the wedding and wanted to go to Hawaii with Kate, he was also free to do that. But in that case, unfortunately, I would have to cut him out of my life for good because he's had enough chances to show me that he will treat me as a priority when it really comes down to it. But he has failed to do so every single time. Now, I simply don't want to tolerate this kind of disrespect anymore. I want to get married, and I want to be happy when I do. I've spent enough time worrying about what he will think, about how other people will feel about my decisions, and it has been a colossal waste of time since he has never bothered to care about how I would feel about certain things. If he cared, he wouldn't have dropped this bomb on me just a couple of days before my wedding. If he cared, he would have apologized to me after I sent him that message. But he hasn't even bothered to respond. I talked to Andy about this too. And he thinks it's the right decision since there are only a few days left before the wedding, and we still haven't been able to work things out with my dad. At this point, I don't even think I have another choice. Update 2. Hey. First things first. I got married yesterday. I still can't believe it. I'm officially a wife now. Besides the engagement ring on my finger, I now also have my wedding band. It's real. And I'm so happy right now. I don't like having to think about my dad and my sister, but I owe you all a detailed update since last time I just vented and left. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, my dad did not attend the wedding. Yes. As far as I know, he decided to go with my sister to scatter her dead cat's ashes in Hawaii. Anyway, I don't want to get into that because some people criticize me a lot for acting like I wasn't taking my sister's depression seriously. Look, I really do feel bad for her, and that's something I will stand firm on. Depression is a terrible thing, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy who, ironically, happens to be Kate. That being said, it wasn't depression that made her do this. It was her severe and crippling need to go against me and be the center of attention all the time that led her to choose to scatter her cat's ashes in Hawaii on the day I was supposed to get married. She really could have waited a few days and then done it. Or maybe she could have done it earlier. But she had to do it on my wedding day. I don't think that's a coincidence. And she's always had something against me. So I refuse to believe this is just her depression acting up. Depression is an explanation, but it's not an excuse. So, yeah, I'm not mocking her. But I also refuse to give her a free pass just because she's struggling. And as for my dad, that's a whole other story. I don't even know what to say about him except that he has disappointed me for the umpteenth time, and this time, I am not going to forgive him. It's going to be hard going through life without any parent in my corner, but let's be real, he was never in my corner anyway. For him, it was always about Kate, and now I see that crystal clear. I was a fool to believe that things could ever change. He chose not to attend my wedding, and he was very sneaky about it. He didn't let me know until after the ceremony. Until then, I was very confused about whether he was going to show up or not since I had left him a message before, but he didn't respond to that. I just kept checking my phone. But then, after I walked down the aisle and everything was over, I realized he wasn't going to show up. That's when he decided to text me, saying that he was in Hawaii with Kate, and that he had decided to attend the ash scattering because Kate needed him more than I did. According to him, she was more emotionally dependent on him, and he was sorry that I didn't understand that. I still would have found that message meaningful if he hadn't chosen to add that my previous immature and petty behavior with my uncle had also greatly discouraged him. And he thought it was better for us to stay apart for a while now. That was another reason why he didn't attend. I'm not going to deny that it was petty, but, honestly, the only reason I did that was because I always felt ignored after my mom passed away. I'm not going to pretend that what I did wasn't immature, but what else was I supposed to do? I just wanted to do something to upset him because I wanted to know what really mattered to him. And maybe he did care, but clearly not enough to show up for me. Anyway, the message really upset me, and it was my wedding day, so I wanted to be happy. So I just blocked him and carried on with my aunt. Besides, he had already chosen not to come to the wedding. So sending a message to tell me he wasn't coming was pretty redundant. People asked about them, about why my dad and sister weren't at the wedding. I chose to be completely honest with them and told them the real reason. I figured this reflected badly on them and not on me, so I had no reason to hide anything. Most people were just speechless, and others found it pretty funny but in a sad way. Anyway, I think pretty much the whole family knows now that my dad skipped my wedding to go to Hawaii with Kate to scatter her cat's ashes. He couldn't even set aside a single day for me, and that is his greatest failure as a father, in my opinion. But still, I had a really fun time and nothing can change that. My wedding day will still be the best day of my life so far. Now, I get to spend the rest of my life with the man I love the most, and I've made the decision that he will be my only family from now on. Update 3. It has been a week since my wedding, and it still feels great to say that. Anyway, Andy and I are about to leave for our honeymoon in a couple of days and, no, it's not in Hawaii. But obviously, my dad and Kate just can't stand seeing me happy. So, they decided that this was the perfect time to confront me about what I had been telling people at the wedding regarding why they weren't there. 3 days ago, Kate texted me. I hadn't blocked her, only my dad. But after reading her message, I felt tempted to block her too because it was so annoying that she actually thought she was the good one here. Just for the record, the only reason I haven't blocked her is that if something ever happens to my dad, I want to be informed. And I know that despite our differences, she would still let me know in case of an accident, illness, or whatever. Anyway, that is literally the only reason I still allow her access to me. I know most people would advise me to cut off all contact, but I don't think that's possible for me. Because just because my dad has been a terrible father, doesn't necessarily mean I have to be a terrible daughter too. This might not make sense to a lot of people, but these are my principles and I'm going to stick to them, so I'd appreciate it if people didn't comment on it. Now, regarding the message she sent me, she said, "Hi, we just got back from Hawaii and many of our relatives have already contacted us. They think we were wrong to choose the day of your wedding to scatter my cat's ashes. I'm not surprised that you decided to tell this story to everyone and paint us in a negative light, but I'm just disappointed that you keep attacking me even though you know I'm going through a really difficult time in my life. I really wish you hadn't spoken badly about me and Dad because we're family. And you, of all people, should understand how hard it is to lose a loved one. I really expected you to have more compassion for me. But anyway, clearly, that's not the case. Dad also noticed that you blocked him and he's really upset about it. So I think you should undo that. And honestly, all I have to say is that you need to be a little more considerate toward us. You can't just go through life only thinking about yourself and expect people to be okay with it. I hope you understand what I mean and apologize. And even if you don't, I won't be surprised because if you're still choosing to criticize me at this point, there's very little I can expect from you. The tone of the message itself really annoyed me. As for the content, I don't even want to say anything about it because I might end up cursing her out here. It was so pretentious and sanctimonious that I honestly just wanted to block her. But then, after thinking about it for a while, I decided to draft my own response and send it. Hi, Kate, yes. I did tell our relatives why you and Dad weren't at the wedding. I decided to be honest about it because I'm not a liar. Besides, by choosing not to show up at my wedding, you both basically put yourselves in that position. And I think it's very unfair for you to expect me to cover for you, especially under the current circumstances since you've both been so unkind to me. You couldn't think of me on my wedding day and try to put me first just for one day, so I really don't think I have anything to apologize for. If Dad is upset that I blocked him, he probably should have thought about it better beforehand instead of regretting it now. I've already made my decision. I don't want any contact with either of you, so I'd really appreciate it if you didn't contact me after this unless it's an emergency. In that case, you can text or call me. But unless there's an urgent situation, I really wish you wouldn't contact me at all. I have no interest in talking to either you or Dad. You've both hurt me a lot over the years, and I agree with what Dad said. It would be better if we spend some time apart for now. I'm now a married woman, and I want to spend the next few years trying to enjoy my life with my husband. Right now, he is my only family. I wish you both all the best in your lives. Goodbye.